everybody! Wow, what a wonderful wonder we have had, wading our way through the WWE universe with every letter of the alphabet walking beside us. My name is Tom Campbell, and this is the letter W on the A to Z of WWE. W is for WrestleMania! 1985, the wrestling world changed forever when Vince McMahon gambled it all on one big event from Madison Square Garden. And it's not a joke to say that Vince McMahon gambled it all on WrestleMania. He put every bit of money into this show, getting celebrity endorsements, massive advertising deals. If it didn't sell out the Garden, then there wouldn't be any more WWF ever. Thankfully, it did all right. Well, you know it did all right because it's 2019 and I'm here giving you an A to Z of WWE. If it didn't, we wouldn't be talking. WrestleMania really has become the granddaddy of them all. That's not a cliche, that's really true. What started off as a yearly event where wrestlers would settle the score that they've been fighting for the entire year, now it's like Glastonbury for wrestling. It's like the Edinburgh Festival for wrestling. Wherever WrestleMania lands in that particular year, you have an entire week of festivities that brings the entire wrestling world together. The biggest WrestleMania in history is WrestleMania 32, attended by over 101,000 people. A sign, if there ever was one, that WrestleMania is only going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Let's take a look at some of the championship accolades that have closed out WrestleMania events over the years. W is for, of course, the WWE Championship. Whether it's the WWF title, the WWF title, the undisputed WWF title, the undisputed WWE title, the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, the WWE World Championship, the WWE Championship, whatever you want to call it, it is the pinnacle championship in the WWE, and it has been since the 60s. Buddy Rogers was the first WWF champion in 1963 when the company broke away from the NWA, but the man with the most success with this title has to be John Cena, who has won this version of the Heavyweight Championship 13 times. It's changed its look over the years quite a bit as well, from humble beginnings to putting an eagle on it, to making it spin, to putting a big WWE thing on it like that one. That was quite nice. I quite like that one. Regardless of what it looks like, if you have held the WWE Championship, you have held a piece of wrestling history. The first time the WWF title changed hands at a WrestleMania was at WrestleMania 5. Macho Man Randy Savage, who'd won a tournament for the vacant title at WrestleMania 4, lost the title to Hulk Hogan the following year's WrestleMania. It then changed hands at WrestleMania 6, WrestleMania 7, WrestleMania 8, twice at WrestleMania 9, and at WrestleMania 10. But the ultimate hero of this championship is John Cena, who has held this version of the WWE Championship 13 times. I say this version because sometimes the lineage of major championships in WWE is a little bit cloudy. On that note, this next W is the World Heavyweight Championship, the big gold belt that WCW wrestlers would proudly compete for in World Championship Wrestling. Of course, when WCW was bought by WWF, and at the end of the whole invasion storyline, we have this spare belt knocking around. Renamed the World Heavyweight Championship, it was unified to become the undisputed World Heavyweight Championship by Chris Jericho at 2001's Vengeance pay-per-view. Fast forward to 2002, and Brock Lesnar, as the undisputed WWE Champion, has decided that he will only work exclusively on SmackDown. So Monday Night Raw needs a champ. Enter Eric Bischoff with the World Heavyweight Championship, awarding it to Triple H. This became the flag bearer for Monday Night Raw until 2005, when then champion Dave Bautista was moved over to SmackDown. That belt would eventually once again be unified with the WWE title, and then it would disappear completely after 2013. WWE like to say that this belt goes all the way back to like the 1900s, but in theory it doesn't. It's just the same designed belt. So this belt technically goes back to 2002. So Triple H has the record for the longest time with this championship belt, 616 days as the man, just clipping out Dave Bautista, who has held it for a not too shabby 507. And we talk of championships being defended at WrestleMania. We talk about our next W as well, the Women's Championship. Now this has had a real stop-start history, so bear with me. The Fabulous Moolah was the first women's champion in the company. The belt, however, was deactivated in 1988. Alundra Blaze would once again bring the championship back when it was rebooted in 1993. Didn't last that long though. In 95, it was once again taken off our screens and wouldn't be seen again until 1998, when Jacqueline and Sable fought for the prestige of being the new women's champion. From 1998 onwards, the championship remained in active competition. Trish Stratus becoming the absolute hero of this era, holding the women's championship 7 times. As we've talked about previously, during this era, there wasn't much emphasis on wrestling in the women's division, but Trish Stratus was one of those people that really carried the weight of the division, along with the likes of Molly Holly and Lita and Jacqueline and others as well. The women's championship was merged with the Divas Championship in 2010, Michelle McCool becoming the unified Divas champion, and then the legacy sort of carries on from there with the likes of the Bella Twins and AJ Lee. At WrestleMania 32, we'd see the Divas Championship be renamed the WWE Women's Championship, and soon after that, when the Raw and SmackDown draft was once again restarted, we would see a SmackDown Women's Division and a Raw Women's Division, each with their own Women's Championships. And it was both of these belts that were on the line in the last match of WrestleMania 35. For the first time in the history of the event, the WWE Women's Championship match was the deserved main event. This brings us neatly to our next W, the Women's Evolution. In 2015, the debut of Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks onto Monday Night Raw was the catalyst to begin a real movement in women's wrestling in WWE. Long gone were the pillow fights and the evening gown matches, and instead there was a real emphasis on in-ring competition in the women's division. And over the next 4 years, we would see so many glass ceilings shattered by some of the incredible female performers in the WWE. The first ever headlining pay-per-view event, NXT TakeOver, respect Bayley and Sasha Banks in a 30-minute Iron Woman match for the NXT Women's Championship. Soon after that, we would see the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match, the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match, the first ever women's TLC match, the first ever women's Royal Rumble match, culminating WrestleMania 35 for the first time ever, where the Women's Championship was the main event of the show. Amongst all of this, we had the Mae Young Classic, a tournament to find some of the best breakout women's wrestlers on the planet, and we had WWE Evolution, the first ever all-women's pay-per-view put on by WWE. Both the Mae Young Classic and Evolution are set to return in 2020, but one thing is for certain now, a real competitive edge has arrived in the women's division in WWE. And I, along with many, say, it's about flipping time. W is also for War Games, an NWA classic brought back to prominence through NXT. So you've got 2 teams, sometimes 3, but mainly 2 teams who are ready to destroy each other. You've got 2 wrestling rings for them to do it in, and you've got a cage that sits over the top of both wrestling rings. 2 wrestlers start. Every 5 minutes, another wrestler will enter. Normally, in the past, determined by a coin flip, nowadays determined by a match in the run-up to the event as to which team gets the advantage. This is crucial. So you'll have then somebody else enter the match, and then every 5 minutes, somebody else comes in, then somebody else comes in, and then when everybody is in the match, you just go for it. Pinfall or submission counts. Good luck, everybody. It's normally carnage. The WarGames match was brought back in 2017 as part of NXT TakeOver, and the Undisputed Era are the only team that has competed in all the men's WarGames matches since it has returned. It's also pertinent to say, since we were talking about the Women's Revolution just now, that the first ever all-women's WarGames was fought in 2019 as well, with Rhea Ripley and Candice LeRae turning back the tide against Shayna Baszler's team. When you think of WarGames, you think of WarGames! That eternal cry from our next W, William Regal, who at 15 years old was beating people up on Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Not just random people, he was wrestling on there, challenging people in the crowd who wanted a bit of a fight. Regal had had an incredible career around the world and as part of WCW before he made his way to the WWF in 1998 as the real man's man, Steven Regal. He'd drive a tractor and cut down trees and stuff. He wore a helmet to the ring. Yeah, the Steven Regal thing didn't really click, so it didn't last that long. He was gone from the company and back to WCW for a brief spell. He would return to the WWF in 2000 as William Regal, who was here to teach British etiquette to the nasty Americans. He became WWF Commissioner as well for a spell and was actually the Commissioner in control whilst WWF went to war against the Alliance. He was the solid backbone of the WWF until he turned his backbone on the WWF and joined the Alliance. Actually, he is one for an alliance, is our Regal. He was part of the Un-Americans in 2002. He was part of the King's Court in 2006. And when he went to ECW, he was the head of the Ruthless Round Table. Regal's in-ring career ended in 2013. He now plays an on-screen general manager for NXT. He also works behind the scenes as a recruiter for WWE. So if you're a wrestler, maybe you're fighting on Blackpool Pleasure Beach. William Regal's in the crowd. Whatever you do, do not invite him in for a fight because he is hard. W is also for the World Bodybuilding Federation. Vince McMahon loves beef. Big beef. Gary Stridham. Wow. The World Bodybuilding Federation story is a hilarious one. So Vince was always a bodybuilding fanatic and he wanted to take over the bodybuilding world the same way he took over the wrestling world, via sneaky shenanigans and a big push on making it all about a big performance and sports entertainment. Vince McMahon was the head of a bodybuilding magazine, so because of that, they got a booth at Mr. Olympia this one year. The reason they were there wasn't to sell the magazine, it was there so Vince McMahon, very much like he did in the territory system of the wrestling in the 80s, could offer all these other bodybuilders exclusive contracts to come and work for his new company, the WBF. Come work for me! I own the WWF! That's doing alright! You could do great as well, look at all that beef! Gary Strider, wow! This ended up working. Vince McMahon signed up a load of IBFF guys to come work exclusively for his company, the WBF. They got a weekly television show, they put on a pay-per-view event, but here's the thing. If you are a bodybuilding fan and you watch the pay-per-view, you are like, what is all this? This is rubbish. It's all like they're doing skits and sketches. I don't care. I want to watch big muscly men posing. I don't want to watch that. And if you were a wrestling fan, which you would have heard about the Bodybuilding Federation through the WWF, if you were a wrestling fan watching this, you'd have gone, what's going on? There's no action. They're just posing. Somehow Vince McMahon made everybody hate the WBF except himself. It lost millions and millions of dollars to the company, so Vince McMahon was forced to shut it down. 3 things in WWF lore remain because of the WBF. We have Ica Pro, which you see advertised over loads of episodes of early Monday Night Raw, which was the conditioning program for people who wanted to have big beefy bodies. All the wrestlers got given loads of free Ica Pro and they couldn't do anything with them. There's a story about Bret Hart having a cupboard full at his house. They also got Lex Luger, who had left WCW to do something a little bit different in the World Bodybuilding Federation. However, by the time that Lex Luger was in a position to join the WBF didn't exist, so he went and wrestled instead. And we got Gary Stridham! Wow! Look at that beef! It's the last time I'll mention Gary Stridham. Gary Stridham! I'm joking. W is finally for What a Rush! the catchphrase of Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom. A dominant tag team from the 80s in the NWA and across the world, they arrived in the World Wrestling Federation in 1990. Now, by that point, the WWF had made their own version of the Legion of Doom called Demolition. So, obviously, the first thing the Legion of Doom did was beat up Demolition for a while. They would become WWF Tag Team Champions, of course, and they would be reunited with their former manager, Paul Ellering, in 1992. However, by the summer of that year, they were no more, as Hawk had gone AWOL after SummerSlam 92, leaving Animal to finish up the remaining dates of their contract before taking time away from wrestling to heal from a back injury. They returned to WWF in 1997 to mix it up with some of the big tag teams of the day, but the spark was gone. Despite a rebranding as LOD 2000, there was just something missing from the lads. The storyline that played off of Hawk's real-life drink and drugs problem didn't really sit well with the Legion of Doom. Replacing Hawk with Darren Drozdoff when Hawk took some time away didn't do a lot for the group either. They reunited a couple of times in the WWF, making guest appearances in 1999 and again in 2003, but the magic was gone. Hawk, aka Brian Hegstrand, passed away in 2003. WWE would attempt to reignite Legion of Doom, replacing Hawk with Heidenreich, as LOD once again ran wild in 2005, but it just wasn't the same. Sadly, to look back on the Legion of Doom's time in the WWF, it was actually some of their lesser stuff. Take time to look away from the WWF to see just what a dominant team in the history of wrestling all over the world the Legion of Doom, or the Road Warriors, truly were. So that is W on the A to Z of WWE. Tomorrow is X. Oh, it's going to be fun, isn't it? We're going to come up with 10 items for X. It's going to be carnage. Bye! Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. You can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/Cultaholic. Lastly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.